How do we support adult learners with their learning? And how can knowing about cognitive load theory help with this? This short whiteboard animation provides an introduction. To understand cognitive load theory, it is firstly important to talk about memory. Human memory is complex. When we first try to remember something, it begins in our short-term or working memory. This has limited capacity to approximately 3 to 7 new elements at a time. We then process some of these elements into our longer-term memory, which quite amazingly has infinite capacity. Information gets to our working memory through our senses. These memory chunks form schema, which are like our brain's filing system. The goal of any learning intervention is to assist with the development of these schemata. In order to develop long-term memory, we must assist this process by considering the cognitive load of each element of our learning to maximize success. So what is cognitive load? Cognitive load is broken down into 3 types. Firstly, intrinsic load. This is the effort created in the brain of the learner based on how difficult the task is. Different types of information and learning tasks have different amounts of interactive elements. The load created for the learner depends on the number of novel or new pieces of information and the levels of interaction between these new pieces. For example, if you're trying to teach attachment theory, first, the learner must learn the theory and all the elements such as the functions, characteristics, and all the terminology. Next, they need to learn about applying the theory in real situations. And finally, they need to learn how to describe, write up, and explain all of this in reports and sometimes in court. This would be regarded as high intrinsic cognitive load. Next is the extraneous cognitive load. This is the mental effort that is created through the design of the training course or materials. Learning materials and design can either distract the learner or encourage learning. It needs to be well thought out, with all included elements being relevant for the learner. Adding extra memes or distracting pictures focus cognitive attention away from the task and add to the cognitive load for the learner. Digital learning should only include elements directly relevant to the topic. And finally, germane load. This is the mental effort created when we try to integrate new information with existing knowledge that we have already. Much of what we learn on a course will involve bringing information to mind that we already know from another source, particularly if you're working with experienced staff. This creates a cognitive load called germane load. If you consider intrinsic load with extraneous load and germane load together in your learning design, you will maximize the effort for staff and manage the cognitive overload. So practically, what can you do to reduce cognitive overload? Firstly, manage your complicated material by breaking it down into chunks, if possible with 3 to 7 elements in each. Second, ensure that the theory is acquired before moving on to more complicated parts of the training. Thirdly, ensure that any media and materials that you use are directly relevant to the learning goals. Provide opportunities for immediate recall and are also opportunities to integrate prior learning and knowledge with this current information. Finally, ensure that your learning materials are the best quality that you can produce.